Welcome to USA Global TV and Radio, where our mission is to provide education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. USA Global TV and Radio connects you with experts and audiences all around the world every single day to help you succeed in business and to live a richer life. Visit us at usaglobaltv.com to learn about career and life-changing training and mentoring programs like the Listening Mentor. Subscribe to our newsletter to stay informed about our special programs and offers. Discover how you can become a guest on one of our shows or a host or producer of a USA Global TV and Radio show of your very own. That's USA Global TV and Radio, where the doctor is always in.
Hello and welcome to USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Heward and I'm known as the Harley Street Stress Expert. Our show today is Talking Heads and I'm an expert presenter in today's topic, which is called the Psychology of Perfection. And it's part of the Mind and Body Connection series. Let's begin. So I'd love to start off with my quotes, and today is no different. The quote that I'm going to start with is from Brené Brown. She says, perfectionism is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. Perfection is a self-destructive and addictive belief system that fuels this primary thought. If I look perfect and do everything perfectly, I can avoid or minimize the painful feelings of shame, judgment, and blame. Brené Brown. This really sets a tone here for the kind of things that we're going to look at in today's session. And it really is a look under the cover. So we're going to look right under the cover of perfectionism and how it can translate in your life and affect yourself and those around you. So what childhood trauma causes perfectionism? And I'd like to touch on this because perfectionism starts from somewhere. And usually this kind of behavior starts from childhood. And in childhood, we don't know how to manage things. We're not taught. We don't have the emotional stability and wherewithal and understanding of how to handle emotions. So what we do is we circumvent our own responses, and some responses we look at how we're getting feedback from those responses. And essentially, when there is childhood trauma, different people respond in different ways. But what I'd like to really look at here is why and how perfectionism can appear from childhood trauma. It might not surprise you, and there again, it might surprise you, that childhood trauma is where most of our fears, our inadequacies, and how we learn to handle things. So from 0 years to 7 years old is when a lot of our informed behaviors and responses appear. And so this can happen when you're very young without even realizing it. It will be just an internal and a response mechanism to get some feedback. Now, if you are feeling lonely or unloved or not being given the affection or the love that you feel that you need, It could be that you're in a family of many siblings. It could be that you're the eldest or the youngest, and whichever place that you're sat in, that you're not getting the attention that you require, that you feel you need. And remember, you're very young at this stage. So it's, if you see your siblings getting more attention and love and more of the time of the parents, then you will almost feel like you're kind of on your own. And this can have an effect on the child. And so that effect can be, well, what can I do to get my parents' attention? And so all sorts of schemes can come up in terms of finding a way to get attention. And perfectionism is a behavioural trait to get attention. So if you do something well, if you do things well at school or well in your sports, or if you do things well in terms of your external hobbies, like if you play football, if you're a young boy, or if you do rounders or some kind of sport, if you're a girl, then there is then a way of getting accolade, appraisal, and praise for your achievements. And so when you're either the youngest or the eldest or the in-betweenie that doesn't quite fit in, whatever that you're playing in terms of where it's affecting you, this is where you will find your alternatives. It might be that the person in the family is not feeling the love that they feel that they're not getting because the rest of the siblings are getting it. They may look elsewhere for the attention that they require. Almost become the black sheep of the family, or the white sheep of the family, as I like to call things. So either do things really, really good and super excel in things, or do things really, really badly, so that you kind of get into trouble all the time, so you get the attention. But we're looking at perfectionism today, and perfectionism is doing things really well, seeking appraisal and accolade for doing things well. And when you do things really well and you're getting praise and recognition externally from your environment of your school, your peers, your friends, it's bound to impact in the family. Also, it could be that you're from a family that has fostered you out, or you're a foster child and not really feeling that you fit into the family. And so you'll want to maybe choose to excel so that you get noticed and get the love that you feel you need. And so this is stemming from a feeling of isolation and loneliness. The child that seeks perfection, it's because they're missing out somewhere in their childhood, whatever that is that they're feeling that they're missing out on, that they will be seeing it with the other siblings. Or if they're from a care home, if there's a challenge and the parents have split up. So all sorts of reasons why the child may feel isolated and seeking attention, seeking love, seeking approval to form that bond. And if they're seeing other people doing well, they will follow the lead. So this is where perfection can come from. And in this state of seeking love, seeking attention, seeking approval, forms the perfectionist in childhood. So what causes anxiety in the perfectionist? Well, have you ever been in that situation where you've started something and you, especially if you write stuff down, it's not so the thing to do today, we're in computers. But have you ever started something and then screwed up the paper and said, oh, that doesn't work and that's not good enough? Or you've, if you're typing on a computer, you started to write something and then you've deleted it because that doesn't kind of make it sound like what you wanted it to sound like. But essentially, you'll be rubbishing, dismissing the things that you feel that you think are good. And then you go back and review and say, no, that's not good enough. So this level of perfectionism, of wanting to get everything completely right, there's a need here to be right, to meet the needs of the perceived needs that you think other people want to see, feel, and hear. And if you don't hit the note internally, you will denigrate it before it's actually got out there to the other person. And this is the inner critic in action. This is where, oh, that doesn't work. That's not good enough. Oh, no, I need to start again. It doesn't say enough. It's not big enough. It's not, brash enough. You will always find, the perfectionist will always find some rationale to hold back and to keep starting again and again and again. And in performance, such as musicians, for instance, artists that are creating music or soundtracks, and I have a few musician friends around me, they will be consistently saying, oh, it's not quite there. I just need to do a bit of this and a bit of that. And then, I need to run the soundtrack and I'm just going to see what it sounds like. And I'm not too happy. There's still a bit more to go. And it's kind of your baby until you let it go into the world. And the perfectionist will hold on for fear that it will be rejected, for fear it's not good enough. It's not worthy enough. And so they will keep holding back on letting go the final draft, the final thing that says, hey, this is it. I'm putting this up for projection, for production. This is finished. So the perfectionist will very rarely or feel very uncomfortable about calling a deadline that everything is done. They will keep finding excuses. They will keep going back to better it, to add more to it, to take stuff away. They will sleep on it, dream about it, and then go back. And so this can actually, I'm sure that you can hear, can be quite detrimental. And the person that's receiving whatever it is that you're doing is going to have a masterpiece. So that's something that you can be assured of, that they're going to get a masterpiece, because you're going to make damn sure, as the perfectionist, you deliver your very best and some, and another bit more, so that they can't turn it away. They can't denigrate it and tell you that it's not good enough. The perfectionist wants a result, and the perfectionist won't stop until they've cured the inner voices, that inner critic, to say, hey, I have to let this go. And usually deadlines are what pushes the perfectionist to a point that they have to say, okay, this is done. So perfectionism challenges. The perfectionist of you will recognize it's all or nothing. It's an all or nothing game. You either have everything this way, or you're not getting anything until I'm ready to give it to you. So this can affect that person's self-esteem. And the reason that they'll be constantly going backwards and forwards, correcting it, changing it, amending things, is because inside there will be an inner critic decrying that it's not good enough, saying this is not the best, this is not good enough. And so this affects the self-esteem. This affects your ability to feel confident in what you're giving over as the final draft. This leads into a situation of seeking approval, needing somebody to say, hey, that was great, this is good enough, this is wonderful. And the person that has self-esteem issues, not feeling that it's good enough, or they're not good enough, or is the item that they're working on, or the service that they're doing, is it good enough? They're constantly seeking that recognition, that approval. Hey, that was a great job. That was really well done. And you'll know the person that's looking for that bit of feedback at the end, because you will recognize it And usually when you recognize it, it'll be because there's something maybe in you that recognizes what the other person needs. Because we are a mirror, we are always mirroring, and we vibrationally, it's all in the field. Vibrationally, we're resonating at that. I need some attention. I need feedback to say, hey, that was a great job. If the person doesn't feel it's a great job, you'll be very lucky if you get something from them, or it'll be at the 11th hour, especially if it's something, say, for instance, for a book or for a song or for something that's created. They will hold off as long as they can. And when there's a deadline there and they have to deliver, then they'll work their little butt off to get that delivery on time. They'll work all night. So they work really, really hard. This can create a level of depression inside the person because they're fighting against the deadlines. They're fighting against their self-esteem. And when they're coming up against themselves, because this is what it is, it's not against other people. They'll be coming up against themselves as the critic, which will fuel a space of a feeling of depression, that nothing that they're doing is good enough. And around all of that, because they want to give all or nothing, there is a paralysis about giving something. And that paralysis, some of us will know as procrastination. We'll kind of sit on it and not let it go, because it's not good enough. Oh, well, I'll get to that when I get to it, because it's a huge mountain. It's a big, big thing. And you don't want to lose sight of it. So there's a lot of control here to keep it all together until you're ready to let it go. So looking at more all or nothing, as you can hear, it's very self-sabotaging. We're our own worst critic. We won't have an enemy that will be criticizing us as much as we are criticizing ourselves as a perfectionist. And so that self-sabotaging mechanism will kick in, and you will be looking at all the ways to justify why you're not good enough or it is not good enough. And from this space, the internal mechanism of perfectionism, the internal behaviors, is that the perfectionist will always set incredibly unrealistic goals. They will always be moving for higher and higher and higher, because they always feel that it's important to show what's achievable. And so they will always aim higher than the average person will be. Their bar will be set to a very high standard. And around them, they will be almost expecting the same back, because that's the mirror effect. They'll be expecting that same high bar from other people. And when they don't get it, they get very frustrated and almost upset, maybe even angry at the person. So there is, in this place of all or nothing and unrealistic goals, a sense of needing to be in control. That control is not like it sounds. That control is needed to control the pieces, all the aspects, because you do it the best. You're in control. You know what you need to do, and other people can't do it as well as you, so it falls on you. This is coming from a little bit of martyrdom here, that there's a need to have your hands on all the decks because you know what needs to be done. And there's almost like a relentlessness of letting some things go, because you know how it has to be done. And there is an uncomfortability of allowing someone to come in and do something because they won't do it as well as you will do it. I'm sure those of us that are perfectionists will recognize that. It's like sort of, you need to delegate, but you know how to do something, so you will hold on to it and do it with bells on, because that's how you do things. And if you handed over something, there is that possibility that it won't be as good as the standard that you have set. Remember, as a perfectionist, your bar will be very high. Your standards personally, professionally, socially, and in terms of the way that you approach things will be very high and very professional. And from that space of being that perfectionist, you will have an expectation and an anticipation, quite rightly so, if you come from that place, that other people are going to deliver to your level of expectation. And underneath all of that, it's coming from a place of in the past being judged, of in your past feeling a level of shame, of not feeling good enough, worthy enough. So underneath these unrealistic goals and underneath this sabotaging mechanism of setting the bar so high and working yourself senseless to achieve this level of perfection that you believe other people are expecting from you, is coming from a place of not wanting to be judged, not wanting to be wrong, and not wanting to feel a level of shame because you didn't get it right first time. And that's why there is this level of needing to be in control. Now, let me actually give you a bit more of an understanding of the control. You're not controlling at all. That there is an aspect of a perfectionist personality that needs to know where all the balls are, because you're spinning all the plates. And so you need to be aware, and that's your level of control, that you will certainly not be controlling, that you will have a need, an interior, an internal need to be in control of what's happening, that there is nothing there that makes you controlling. So looking at the mind and body connection here, when we are stressed, especially in our working environment, the perfectionist at work, if there's something that's not going quite right, or you're feeling that you're restricted with what you can do, what's possible to do in terms of your creativity, you will undoubtedly suffer with some level of neck pain and low back pain. And the neck pain is to do with the throat chakra and not being able to feel, not feeling that you're expressing your full creativity in your environment of work and occupation. So if you ever see people kind of rubbing their neck, or, sort of massaging their neck, or kind of stretching out their back, this will be because they're not feeling that they're in that place to express all of their creative skills in the job that they're doing at that time. And so there is a cycle that goes through this mind and body connection, and that is the perfectionism of the state of reaching actualization of perfectionism can give the person a level of anxiety of not reaching it, not being there. And that anxiety is an internal processing. It's not somebody saying anything to you, it's your own internal processing. And that level of anxiety can then lead to physical ache and pain, such as neck pain or low back pain. And then, because you're fighting with the body, and the body then needs attention, there will be an internal feeling of underperforming, because the mind and body aren't connected. You're fighting against each other and not feeling in the space of completeness. And it's a vicious circle, because the underperformance comes directly under the needing to be a perfectionist in whatever you're delivering. So here's the vicious cycle of perfectionism. If I'm perfect, I'll feel better. Let me repeat that. If I'm perfect, I'll feel better. And this can go in any tranche of the person's life, whether it be professionally. This is where we'll see a lot of it in projects and in their working role, and in teams. They will be the one that's the go-getter, the one, the can-do person, the one that everybody goes to, the one that has all the answers because they see you as the person that knows it all, that has the credibility. The perfectionist will gain external credibility very easily because that's their recognition, that's what they aim for. And then when they have this cycle of feeling the anxiety that they're not performing as much as they want to perform, remember this is an internal experience, they will then feel that, well, perfection isn't real. It's just not, I can't attain it because the bar is set so high that sometimes it's unreachable in terms of the timing that they've set themselves. And so then there's an internal feeling. This is a very internal experience of the perfectionist, that internally there will be a feeling of, I failed at being a perfectionist in that project, in that relationship, in that social situation. So there will be then a feeling of failure. And when the perfectionist fails, that is a very hard situation to take. It's very, very difficult. And so it moves them into, I'm not good enough. I'm not worthy. I'll just have to work harder. I'll try harder to be better, to achieve what I want to set out, to impress and improve and beat the target, beat the goals. And so this is an internal system of beating themselves up. It's not very pretty, and it can lead to a lot of very serious levels of internal depression that the external people, the external world, probably won't be aware of, because these are internal experiences for the person that is the perfectionist. So how do we overcome perfectionism? Because this is ingrained from childhood. This is something that's so ingrained that it becomes part of who we are, who we're being on a daily basis. So maybe sometimes we don't actually appreciate that we're being a perfectionist. It'll be the feedback that people will give you. So the first step is awareness. When you become aware, that's when you can decide to change things. And I like to use the word become a witness. Become a witness to the perfectionism in your lifestyle. Because you won't just be a perfectionist in one aspect of your life, you'll be a perfectionist in many different areas. And so it'll be in your home. It'll be that everything has a place, it's tidy, everything has a place and a home. And if it's out of place, it will be a challenge for you. And that can infiltrate into relationships, both in family and in personal, intimate relationships, because you might be the perfectionist, and then the other person that you're in your relationship with, whether it's family or personal or an intimate relationship, they don't put the toothpaste lid on, or they don't make the bed every morning when they get up, or they leave their clothes all over the floor, and you're picking up after them because you want to keep things tidy. So this can actually be a bit of a bane of your life, if you are the perfectionist, because you'll never feel that the other person is living up to your standards. So this can create some huge challenges in terms of your personal relationships with family, with friendships, and obviously in your intimate partnerships, and also within your working situation as well. So when you become aware, that's when you can start to change things and set your bar a little lower for yourself and for others. Make a primary, make a decision, decide what it is that you want to achieve. And when you decide, then that primary decision that you make Everything will fall into place from that primary decision. And then any secondaries that you have, not being good enough, not worthy enough, this can't happen, the time's not right, then can be batted off internally by the time you've made your primary. If you've made a primary, well, I will write my book and it will be complete and launched at this date. You've made it a primary, you've made a decision. And then the secondaries will come in. Oh, it's not good enough. Oh, this has happened. That's not right. This is not right. So you move the date. And what happens is that those secondaries come in to fight you from delivering. And so when you become aware and become witness to this behavioral trait that you are experiencing, when you become primary and witnessing, something magical happens. You then decide, well, this is the date, we've agreed this date, and it's going to go out on this date. And so then you let go of all those extra challenges of making amendments, changing things. One of the things that the perfectionist doesn't do very well is celebrate. They've hit one goal or target and they straight away move on to the next one. And celebration is so, so important because you've set the goal so high, you've achieved it. And instead of celebrating, generally the perfectionist will just move on to the very next challenge because there's always one waiting, or two or three waiting for them to complete, because that's how the perfectionist works. They work in a lot of things to do. And so my invitation to you is to pull back when you've done something well, when something has turned out well, and people are congratulating you and complimenting you, and bask in the celebration and be in that state of celebration. Because when you celebrate, you're actually inviting the universe to bring more in of what you're celebrating. So it has a vibration all of its own. Instead of being in that anxious space of not being good enough, it brings you into the space of already celebrating more things that are going to come into your place, which you'll be celebrating. So celebration is absolutely vital for you to feel that state of accomplishment, that feeling of achievement. I want to touch on the Pareto Rule. Some of you may have heard of the Pareto Rule, and some people may not have heard of it. And essentially, the Pareto Rule is 80-20. 80% of the results that you experience in life are down to 20% of your activity. Now, sometimes the perfectionist gets that the wrong way around, and they think 80% of what they do gives them the 20% of achievement. It's the other way around. 80% of the outcomes are the result of only 20% of the actions and activities. So that's a very small percentage. And here, instead of looking at everything being right and on target, my invitation for you is to gather wisdom. Because when you gather wisdom and something didn't work out, or, one of the things that I do, and it's something that I'd like to share with you in terms of a philosophy, a behaviour. When something doesn't work and you've kind of screwed it all up and it didn't come to time and you got that wrong, is asking the question, what did I learn from this experience? And what would I do differently next time? Because you can beat yourself up about getting it wrong and not getting it to time and really making a hash of it. But actually, what could you learn from that, supposed mistake? And it's good to make mistakes, although the perfectionist doesn't like to make mistakes. It's actually really, really wholesome to make mistakes or not get it right first time. Because when you've made the mistakes, this is the place of wisdom. This is the place of internal and external growth, both from your physical growth, mentally, emotionally, physically, and also your spiritual and intellectual growth. Wisdom is priceless. You can't gain wisdom until you've done something, tried something, and had a go at something. The challenge with the perfectionists, they hold back and they hold back and hold back until they lose out. And so I invite you to use this 80-20 rule, the Pareto Rule, of 20% of your activities give you 80% of the accolade, the achievement. You just have to work out which 20% it is and focus on those things, which is why the invitation is to learn from what you've done, create a level of wisdom from every situation. What would I do differently if it didn't work out? How can I make this better next time? I certainly remember getting my results through from my recent coaching course that I still have my case studies to do. And I came out with a 91% distinction. And they sent the marking sheet back so that you could see where you had gained the marks and where you had lost the marks. And I actually looked at where I didn't get the absolute maximum marks to see where I could make it better next time. So what I'm sharing with you is I have that perfectionism trait, and I'm learning and growing and working with it. So here's a quote from Vince Lombardi. Perfection is not attainable, but if we chase perfectionism, we can catch excellence. Perfection is not attainable, certainly not every time. But if we chase perfection, we catch excellence. And excellence is almost better than perfection. And my final quote for the session is by Marie-Angelique Arnold. Perfection consists not in doing extraordinary things, but in doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. Perfection consists not in doing extraordinary things, but in doing ordinary things extraordinarily well. I'd like to finish with a compassion mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum. This is the jewel in the lotus. This is, may all beings live in peace. And when we can give ourselves a level of compassion, that's a level of internal love. When we give that to ourselves, we give out compassion to others. Om Mani Padme Hum. 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 If you chant this mantra, just sing along many times, 108 times. It will change the vibration, your frequency, your internal frequency. It will move you from stress, anxiety, depression to a place of inner calm and inner peace. And it will give you the internal compassion and love that you crave as a perfectionist. Thank you for your attention and your interest. Please subscribe to USA Global TV and Radio. You can find all of our Talking Heads episodes under the playlist Talking Heads 2023 and my last year's Talking Heads under 2022. Please do reach out to me if I may be of service to you. You can contact me on nomorestress@live.co.uk or call on +44 if you're international, 0 if you're local, 7523 120 189. It has been my pleasure to help you today. This has not been just a training. This has not been a PowerPoint. This has been a healing transmission. I honour you for staying with me. Please allow me to help you further. Namaste.